Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ecker Geopolitics. It is March 31st, 2026. It's the last day of March Madness in this month, and it has been mad, I will say. So, Trump is saying that he wants to potentially leave in 2 weeks. He says we could leave in 2 weeks. He pressured allies. He left a Truth Social post, and we're going to get all into that and how this Truth Social post is really pressuring the allying nations, a lot of these allying countries, to actually act and back up the United States. But at the same time, they don't want to get involved. So what does that mean? It means we might just be leaving the Strait of Hormuz, but we'll see. Or is it doublespeak, right? Is it just a way that Trump was doing this to secure the oil prices and keep those low? Who knows? A lot of his statements that he's been making, he's been making them right as the markets are either closing or opening. And he's doing this like the day before or after, or maybe sometimes a few hours before. So let's look at the news and everything that's going on. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, support the show, support the information, and this will be a good one. Got a lot of ads posts that we're going to go through. We're going to talk about the big developments happening in the Middle East, particularly all of the developments happening right now. Breaking: Starmer suffers major defeat in court regarding his plans to transfer sovereignty of the Chaos Archipelago from the UK to Mauritius. The judge of the Bayat Supreme Court made that decision. The more I learn about Yemen, and then again, this is a news story, the more I learn about Yemen, the more I admire them. So looks like a lot of the sentiment is for Iran here. Iran's fighting for the entire world because this Strait of Hormuz, Karg Island's right here where my cursor is. Can't really see it. Kind of got to zoom in here. But this is where the fight is being fought, right in this little area right here in the Strait of Hormuz. And all of our ships are basically docked right here. It's this little area, and then over here, in this little strait too, is a lot of where this war is going to be fought. And so you're not seeing a lot of news on that yet, but when we look on Glint, that's kind of what's going on. When we look at the air traffic, we got some presidential flights in the air. Looks like somebody's going to London. Maybe that's Keir Starmer himself, right? So there's a lot of news that is developing in the United States too. Got a lot to see. We got another presidential plane here. We have a lot of information going on. So with the featured story, we have Trump saying the U.S. could end the war in Iran in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's pretty big news considering that Trump has been going back and forth on this, whether or not we're actually going to stay in the war, whether or not we're going to not stay in the war. What do you guys think? Do you guys think we're actually going to stay in this war? Let's hear what you guys have to say. Let's hear what Trump has to say. There's Howard Lutnick. Oh, man. Whenever we see Howard Lutnick behind Trump, we know something's up. Let's take a listen to this video. Well, let me turn the volume on. That might help. There we go.
Gas prices today, they hit $4.
We're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
Look at Howard Lutnick's facial expressions. I'm always perplexed by Howard Lutnick because Howard Lutnick is the one who's really been benefiting from the tariffs because again, he's going to be getting all the tariff buybacks, right? And he was in the Epstein files and said multiple times in the Epstein files that he was good buddies with Epstein.
We're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring
I don't think that's true. Do you feel safer, America? Do you feel safer being in this war for Israel, on behalf of Israel? I certainly don't. I think that's very clear to say that no Americans who are educated with an IQ above 110 want to be in this war.
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon, and they'll become tumbling down. I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3. We're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous amounts of missile-making facilities. We, as you probably read or wrote, we'll hit bridges, and we've hit some. We'll hit some bridges. We've got a couple of nice bridges in mind.
Okay.
But if they come to the table, that'll be good. But it doesn't matter whether they come or not. We've set them back. It'll take 15 to 20 years for them to rebuild what we've done to.
So this is very good news. This is what I would call a strategic retreat, a strategic exit.
2 weeks, maybe 3. We're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous.
And Trump is saying that because he knows that Iran knows he's been bluffing on a lot of the big statements, right? Trump knows that the United States has a very low chance of actually taking the Strait of Hormuz if we're actually going to be in a situation where, our allies aren't even going to be willing to back us. And to the extent that they are, they're definitely not going to be willing to, do more than maybe allow us to sail through their waters. Maybe they'll allow us to plant some anti-missile, devices on the shores, things like that, right? Maybe they'll allow us certain rights, certain abilities. But really, overall, what Trump just said there is that we're basically going to be probably leaving. That's what he wants, at least. We'll see. Because if we leave, again, if we don't leave strategically the way that we are, then we kind of leave ourselves in a position of weakness to other countries. March 31st, Reuters, President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that the U.S. could end its military campaign against Iran within 2 to 3 weeks. We'll be leaving very soon, he told reporters at the White House's Oval Office, adding that the exit could take place within 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3. The declaration was Trump's clearest to date that he intends to soon end a month-long war that has reordered the Middle East, disrupted global energy markets, and changed the trajectory of the Republicans' presidency. And remember, there was also the 12-day war. That only happened maybe 7 months ago. I'm kind of guessing at the moment. But that happened too, and it was kind of the same thing. A view of damage inside the house that was damaged by a strike amid the U.S.-Israeli conflict with Iran in Tehran, Iran, on March 15, 2026. So again, that's just from that date. But again, this article's from today. Trump added that Tehran does not have to make a deal with Washington to end the conflict. Iran doesn't have to make a deal, no. He said that when asked if a successful diplomacy was a prerequisite to the U.S. winding down the conflict, he said, no, they don't have to make a deal with me. Instead, Trump said, the requirement for winding down the operation was that Iran be put into the Stone Ages without the ability to soon acquire a nuclear weapon. And they're always going to have the ability to acquire a nuclear weapon. Iran's ability of deterrence, or their form of deterrence, is by having a nuclear program and by having that nuclear enrichment, being able to enrich, nuclear capabilities so that they can defend themselves against Israel, who is constantly bombing them. Reporting by Nandita Bose and Trevor Honeycutt. Editing by Daphne Saladakis and Michael Nichols. I wanted to make sure I get those names right. But that's pretty much the featured story. That's the big news. That was the video I was going to play here, but we'll just kind of look at these other ones. Again, I wanted to kind of look more into the Truth Social statement also that was made by Donald Trump and kind of what he had to say about that, or what Grok had to say about that. So again, this was the Truth Social tweet by Donald Trump. All of those countries that can't get fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number 1, buy from the United States. We have plenty. And number 2, build up some delayed coverage, go to the Strait, and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. President Donald J. Trump. So this was the statement that was released by the White House at 7:21 a.m. this morning, March 31st, 2026. All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Fight on your own. Get your own oil. That is what Trump says. So basically, to me, this is a statement that Trump is he's calling on the allies to, back us, but at the same time, he's also not going to just be dependent on them either, right? And so when I asked what this really meant, Trump's post, relayed by the White House X account, but originating from his Truth Social, is a classic example of transactional America First foreign policy playbook. This is a very interesting take that Grok had on this. Okay, so geopolitical reasoning. Let's look into this a little bit. Burden sharing and ending free riding. Trump has repeatedly criticized NATO/European/Asian allies for relying on U.S. military production, Gulf security, carrier groups, pricing, shipping lanes, without reciprocal contributions. This post escalates that. Allies refuse to help strike Iran, so they can't expect the U.S. to keep Hormuz open indefinitely for their jet fuel and tankers. It's the same logic he applied to NATO defense spending, pressuring increases in the past Middle East ops. U.S. energy dominance as leverage. The U.S. is a net oil exporter with massive shale capacity. A global storage from the Iranian blockade lets America sell at premium prices with Europe/Asia suffer. While Europe/Asia suffer. Directing demand to buy from the U.S. turns a crisis into an economic win for American producers/workers. Indirect pressure on Iran. By globalizing the pain, the world now has a problem, not just us, is kind of the message that Trump is saying here. It isolates Tehran further and accelerates their incentive to negotiate reopening the strait or to accept a ceasefire without the U.S. committing a prolonged, costly minesweeping/escort operation that could drag on for months. So the strategic pivot is Trump has signaled the U.S. wants to wind down major combat in the Middle East to refocus elsewhere, China, for example, claiming Iran has been essentially decimated. Frames from the U.S. as having achieved its core goals, degrading military/nuclear capabilities, so others can handle the mop up. This mirrors the broader style. This mirrors Trump's broader style. Use public, blunt social media, and set red lines, create market/political pressure, and force negotiations on favorable terms. Desired outcome. So Trump's perspective, he believes that the allies, UK, the United Kingdom, Europe, Japan, South Korea, and China will ramp up purchases of the U.S. oil/LNG, which would cause immediate revenue for American energy sector, offsets of any domestic price pain, and it positions the United States as the reliable supplier during the crisis. Okay, so again, that's pretty big. That's pretty important to think about, pretty important to consider. I always forget to post this link to X. Pop on here. Get some audience people. Listen. Okay, there we go. As we were, burden shift or coalition formation, allies either step up with their own naval forces, as Trump has demanded in prior posts, or face the consequences of inaction. Ideal, a multinational effort reopens the strait without sole U.S. ownership. Accelerated resolution with Iran. The shaming amplifies global pressure on Tehran to reopen Hormuz without threat, or risk further strikes on power plants/oil infrastructure per his earlier 48-hour ultimatums. Trump wants a quick, complete, and total resolution on U.S. terms, weakened Iran, and no nukes. U.S. exits on a win. Political/domestic win. Reinforces America First narrative to his base. We're not the world's policeman anymore. Deflecting blame for high gas prices onto ungrateful allies, and justifies reduced U.S. entanglement. So the patterns from Trump's his prior Truth Social posts and what followed, Trump's announcements in this exact Iran conflicts and earlier analyst cases, follows a repeatable cycle based on documented posts and outcomes. Strong rhetoric/ultimatums first, 48 hours or we will obliterate the power plant/oil wells/Kari Island. These examples are just examples of how Trump typically would do this, followed quickly by de-escalation signals right after those, and that usually happens within 1 to 7 days after Trump's tweets. So again, we're studying what kind of happens with Trump's his Truth Social posts and how that kind of works, right? What happens from his Truth Social posts? Why is he posting what he posts? And how does this impact the future of the war, in particular, where we're going? So threats, this shows very good and productive conversations within Iran, 5-day pause, strikes, and then March 23rd, the post led to oil prices relief and stock rallies. Iran denied talks publicly, but the back channels continued. And then there was also ally pressure. There was immediate flip to we don't need any help, actually. And then there would be progress announcement, repeatedly extending deadlines. So really, again, just back and forth, doublespeak. So the most ideal and likely outcome from this post, the Truth Social post that Trump made today, saying that we're basically going to get ourselves out of the war slowly, kind of a strategic retreat, a strategic exit. Within days, the follow-ups on Truth Social with an announcement of production discussions or a short pause/extension claims partial progress, some allies buying U.S. oil or Iran easing attacks, and positions the U.S. for a favorable wind down. This is good. This is exactly what should be happening. This is what Trump should do. The strait reopens or stabilizes without indefinite U.S. commitment. American energy exports surge, and Iran remains weakened. Trump touts it as another deal win, where allies finally learn to fight for themselves. If allies don't budge, he pivots harder to full U.S. disengagement. We did our part, is probably going to be the language. If our allies that Trump has really reached out to with this Truth Social post, if they choose to not fight with us, then we'll probably just disengage. And that's kind of what Grok is saying, at least. We're just analyzing this post and, again, the behavior of the post and the outcomes of these kind of posts and how long things usually happen within that time frame. Okay, so the strait reopens or stabilizes without indefinite U.S. commitment. American energy exports surge. Iran remains weakened, and Trump touts it as another deal. Yeah, so That's pretty much the goal here. This fits his history, hyperbolic pressure at leverage for transactional resolutions, not endless wars. The Post is theater to accelerate that. So I definitely would agree. I would agree. And then at the same time, we also had this post. This was at 12:45 today, and this is kind of where we're at right now. When we look at the Kabasi letter, they released breaking Iran's president. Man, I can just never say these names right. Iran's president Pezeshkian says Iran is ready to end the war with the U.S. but wants guarantees. U.S. stocks are surging on the news, and they are. And so is crypto. I think crypto is going to do some pretty positive things from this as well. Okay, so take a look at this. This is a video of Howard Lutnick, and just look at this. Just take a listen. You tell me what you think. Tell me what you think.
That's how you get money down. That's how you fix the deficit. You are fixing everything with your policies. You have changed America and created the golden age.
Thank you. And with the
that's how you get
that's Howard Lutnick. Okay, so before we get into some of the X stories and some of these bigger stories, just wanted to look at the markets real quick. We noticed that the fear and greed index did go from 26 yesterday back up to 30. So people are feeling pretty good. They're feeling a little bit better. The markets also went up for Bitcoin since yesterday. We're up, 2.25% from yesterday. Bitcoin's at 68,000. And Ethereum's at 2,100. XRP's at $1.33. That's up that's up 1.2% in the last 24 hours. Solana's at $83. Tron is at 31 cents. Dogecoin's at 9 cents. And a lot of these other coins, Cardano is pretty much still at 24 cents. It actually went down since yesterday. Chainlink also went up 1.85% since yesterday at $8.70. And Monero is at $332.16. It's up 3.37% since yesterday. Then again, of course, can't forget about Stellar Lumens and some of our other players here. Stellar Lumens is at 16 cents. And then Hedera Hashgraph is at 8 cents. And of course, we have World Liberty Financial, Trump's coin, sitting right there. Still seems to be performing pretty normally. As far as the prediction markets go, we have a lot of different big developments with politics. So a Democrat presidential nominee in 2028. Look at that. 24% of people think that it's going to be Gavin Newsom. Do you think that that's an accurate prediction? 24%. For Republicans, 36% of people think it's going to be J.D. Vance. 21% of people in this other poll believe that it's going to be Marco Rubio. And then 4.75% say Tucker Carlson, and 2.65% say Ron DeSantis. Who would you vote for president? Who do you want to run for president? That's what I want to know. What are your guys' thoughts on who should run for president? Who would be the best outcome for it? Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts. So going back into the X timeline here, let's look at some of these breaking stories today. A lot of big news today that changed the markets, that changed the world, right? This is a big day. So Iranian missile attacks on U.S. Air Force bases. This is already happening. Yeah, this was just yesterday, March 30th, 2026. But this is in Iraq. So why are we back in Iraq again? Look at this.
Oh,
That's scary. Right next to him.
are y'all good? Everybody's good.
Close call.
Everybody over here is good. Yeah. Good. I saw that one come in.
Why are we sending our troops there
Everybody
again?
okay?
I don't know, right? It is a human sacrifice, if you ask me, to send our troops into Iran right now. So I hope Trump is successful in getting out of the Strait of Hormuz, actually. I hope Iran does withstand the fight, only because I think strategically it would be better for the United States to get out of there. U.S. sends nuclear carrier George H.W. Bush to the Middle East. Sorry, I got to lower that music. Don't want to get any copyright. But yep, this is the U.S. This is the USS George H.W. Bush. So, who knows? Who knows? Again, this is ridiculous. Iran wants a deal. SPY is pumping and WTI oil just dropped at $5 a barrel in literally 60 seconds almost. Iran's president just came out saying they're open to ending the war on their terms. The real question is, will Israel comply, or is this fake news?
With the US, but
I did want to look over this. Let's take a look into this guy's analysis. He's pretty great. He has some pretty good takes on the markets.
So we just had some news on oil, and you literally saw this in the matter of like 2 minutes, to where you just dropped down $5 on oil from 105 down to $100. We kind of based there, and you started bouncing back up. But it all comes off of this news: Iran's president coming on saying that Iran is ready to end the war with the U.S., but it wants guarantees. Now, those specific guarantees that he's talking about, maybe in this case, if they're not different than what Iran said before, we need to understand that those haven't been released. But the previous demands of what was happening was, number one, that Iran gets basically total control of the Strait of Hormuz, meaning they're going to charge tolls, which inevitably makes Iran stronger than this whole war when it began. If you take a step back and think about it, because now they can charge millions of dollars just to get in and out of that strait, not just all of their exports and how they've been, selling oil to China, India, etc. So now they're actually beyond their trade. They're actually getting more control and making more money there. The other big thing.
Medi833 said, I think the goalposts were moved to be able to disengage from Iran. It was a bad decision in the first place. 100% agree with that. 100%.
Understand is basically Trump said, look, we want to have total control of the nuclear arsenal. We want to own it. We want to control it. Iran said they want sovereignty, be able to do whatever they want, and they want a total and complete ceasefire. Right? I want this to be very, very clear. I can actually bring this up so you can see. This is the big thing you have to understand, right? So we will not accept a ceasefire, but rather we seek complete end to the war, not in Iran alone, but the entire region. So they're wanting to dictate control based off of what Israel is doing. Now, I don't know your political, where you stand, whatever you believe, but it's unlikely Israel is going to do that. It's unlikely Israel is going to say, all right, we're just going to stop attacking anyone in the Middle East.
Yep, that's true.
Stop all of our operations. So again, this is more pointing the fingers, in my personal opinion. I mean, what's happening there. It's also worth mentioning this is not the supreme leader of Iran. I am not an expert in Iran government and politics. I think the supreme leader is higher than the president. We'll see.
Yeah, the rumor has it that the supreme leader that Trump was in negotiations with, they basically whacked him. They killed him. They assassinated him. That's the rumor. We're going to be looking at that video too and analyzing that, breaking it down. But first, let's finish looking at this analysis because he did a pretty good job breaking it down as well.
We'll see, right? So important to understand what's going on there. Now, going back into the price of where we're at on oil, again, you can actually get rid of replay so you can just see it completely. You're already bouncing back in towards 102. Now, the more important thing to do is take a step back to a viewpoint of like the daily. And you look here at higher time frames on oil, you're still holding previous highs so far, previous day highs or previous day lows right there as well, near $100, trying to push up. You go look at the USO, which is the best ETF if you're looking to trade oil. It actually had your breakout here on the day right above 130, but it's still holding your previous day lows as well, near 126, 127. So the question is do you start getting, do we actually see oil pull back? Because that's really the big thing you want to see here is if you're looking for the market to bounce back, to get continuation to the upside, oil has to go down. There's not a reality in which oil stays up, stays strong, and the S&P 500 goes up. That's not going to be long-term feasible.
And I think a lot of this depends completely and entirely on whether or not Trump is going to be successful in getting the United States out of the Strait of Hormuz. I think that's what the entire world's really looking at because, again, if that oil can still flow, I mean, even if China were to take a lot of that oil still, we're still winning because a lot of that oil is going to be used for their manufacturing, which, again, we end up becoming consumers of. And so I guess in some ways, China's winning from this. But at the end of the day, I think it's better if the United States get out of Iran. Again, this was a disengagement by Trump, I think, and it was the right move. I think it was the right move to balance the oil prices as well.
That's not going to be sustainable, right? And it's also important to know where USO is, right? Like what's this big level here on USO? Well, this is your previous highs from 2018. You're already above where you were during the Russia conflict. And the last time we broke out of a level here, going back to 2019 highs, you went almost straight into 130. But when you broke below 91, you pushed right into that next level. So it's important to understand the context of where we're at overall, right? Not being biased, just showing you the viewpoints of what's actually taking place. Now, you're also going to get more news coming out. Again, these are the unpredictable factors. You're not going to be able to predict that, a new leader is going to come out and say, we want to make a deal. Or they come out later on and say, well, America doesn't want to make a deal, so we're going to keep bombing them. Israel's going to bomb us. You just don't know what's going to be said. So if you're trying to play that prediction game, it's a dangerous, dangerous game to play. Now, going over levels on SPY and QQQ, you are holding up. You're coming back into this bigger level here on 652 here on SPY, which if I just get rid of the indicator so you can just see just flat out that level, take a zoom out. I recommend taking a zoom out on most of these charts. It would be a pretty nice BR BRB break and retest of that 652 region, which would be something that I would love to see, is you get that break, the retest, and potential continuation on the downside and how we react there. If you get back above the 200 SMA, I would lean pretty bullish, to be totally honest. But getting QQQ,
Likewise.
the level you're looking at is closer into 583. So trying to work our way back to there as well. But again, really what I'm looking at right now, hopefully that's clear. I'm not like confusing anybody. Exactly what I'm looking at right now. Okay. The only other area to look at in the market for weakness overall is SMH, which again, SMH did break below yesterday, 372. You get back below 372, I'm very weak on semis. And if semis are weak, yes, the NASDAQ is generally very weak. So again, broad market, what we're looking at, everything that's coming in with the news, I'll keep you guys updated as well here on the channel. Follow for more content.
Yeah, definitely follow him. He gives great content on the oil market specifically. That's Jeff Trades. Definitely take a look at that. But that's what's pretty much going on with the oil markets. That's how the entire shifts today with the Truth Social post by Trump. That's how it is really affecting this entire war and how it's really going to impact where we're going in the future with this. Whether or not we're going to disengage from Iran, I think we will from this. Hopefully that's the outcome, right? But we'll see what Israel does. Israel does not like to basically anything that America tries to do. They tend to step in the way of that and try to sabotage it. And whether that be from strikes or what they're doing with Lebanon right now, that's simultaneously happening. They're not really talking too much about Lebanon. And that's a big deal because that is basically going to be a security front for the state of Israel. So that's important to consider what's happening there. So moving on beyond that subject, let's start looking into some of the hotter stories here on X that I thought were worth talking about over the past 24 hours. And so let's take a look. This dude I don't really pay attention to sports. I don't watch a lot of sports. I'm more of a political guy, geopolitics, history. But Jaden Ivey was thrown off the Chicago Bulls today over his Christian views on LGBTQ pride events. He's reacting live on Instagram now and refusing to back down from his religious convictions. NBA wouldn't dare to do this to any other faith. Christians must stand with Jaden's. So what do you guys think of this video? Let's take a look.
Truth?
I honestly thought this was wild.
They said my conduct is detrimental to the team, right? Why didn't they just say we don't agree with his stance on LGBTQ? Why didn't they say that? Well, how is it conduct detrimental to the team? What did I do to the team? What did I do to the players?
Right.
I did nothing but practice with them, play with them, pass the ball to them, good teammate to them. Said good job, good shot.
Yeah, I don't really know much about this story. If you guys do, leave a comment. I don't know nothing about this guy, really.
Way to play, bro. Right? I said these things to my teammates. Was never detrimental to them. So why is it that the NBA and the Chicago Bulls say that I'm detrimental to the team?
It doesn't match the agenda, bro. It doesn't match the agenda. You got to be woke.
Cause I believe in the truth. Because I know
Seriously,
Jesus
man.
is the way, the truth, and the life. How? How is my conduct detrimental to the team? Because of what I believe. Because of what the truth is.
I want to originally say, like, my first response to this is there's probably another reason, right? I mean, there's always a second reason. It's not just for one reason usually. But at the same time, this is definitely a real thing that's happening. You know, Christians are getting persecuted like crazy all over the world. Syria, again, Israel. Look at all the villages that are being destroyed in Lebanon. They're Christian villages, a lot of them. And then, you know, there's the argument that a lot of them are terrorists and Hezbollah, Hamas. But then who created Hezbollah and Hamas, right? So, yeah, Christianity's definitely taken a hit, but seems to be strong at the same time. The Catholic Church, there's been more, I think this year might have the most Catholics that's like ever existed. Honestly, I think there's like been record numbers for Christendom. So who knows? I think all of this war is creating a lot of Christianity. I think people are coming to their own senses on it. And, you know, we'll see what happens. Breaking news, possible coup in the Burundi, a possible coup unfolding in the Bujumbura, capital city of Burundi. Since 6 p.m. Central Time, explosions, gunfire, and bombs have been going on. We are waiting for our correspondents in the area to give us the latest. So that's interesting. Okay. So again, if you're listening to this, we're watching a video of looks like some kind of bomb. God, bro. Okay. But yeah, so this is what's happening. This is World War III. Let's look more into that little story real quick. Just make sure we got all the facts. This post is from Africa Today. MG claims possible coup in the Burundi's capital. 6 p.m. Official statements from Burundi's army, reports from Reuters, AFP, and France 24 confirmed the incident as an electrical short circuit fire at a National Defense Force ammunition depot. Okay, yeah, that sounds like an accident. Okay, causing chain reaction explosions, but no injuries, fighting, or political unrest. The post's unverified breaking news framing sparked widespread speculation and panic on social media, amassing over 246,000 views in hours. So that's kind of what happened with that. Israel isn't winning; it is collapsing. This is interesting.
That is not the case.
Let's listen to this guy's analysis. See what he has to say.
On the brink of civil war, Israel is collapsing. They want to seem like they're really strong and that they're actually winning this war against Iran. That is not the case. First off, we even have an Israeli army chief saying that the army is close to collapse because they do not have enough soldiers. One of the reasons for this is because Israel has simply stretched itself out too thin. It's occupying new areas in Gaza, the West Bank, Syria, and Lebanon. But in doing so, that requires a lot of soldiers to be there to then occupy and invade these countries. It is, of course, not only occupying those areas, but fighting different resistance groups there, along with, of course, fighting this war against Iran, as well as Yemen most recently. And with all this fighting, many soldiers are, of course, losing their lives. But even beyond the battlefield, many are also losing their lives when they return back home.
It's been crazy to see the Israeli people and the soldiers, like, they're shocked. They're shocked that people are fighting back. They're shocked that this is happening. It's honestly wild. We're going to watch some videos of it. But they can't believe it. They can't believe that anybody has even fought back against them. They can't believe that this is even happening. It's crazy. It's like, how?
Choosing to end their lives as a result of the PTSD they experience because of the various war crimes they have committed.
Yeah.
Second off, though, Israel is also collapsing because it is running out of interceptors to stop Iranian drones and missiles. This is according to the Wall Street Journal, a most recent report, but myself and others predicted that this would happen almost a month ago. The reason for this is because Iran is able to actually send out missiles and drones that are, relatively speaking, quite cheap and that can be manufactured on an ongoing basis. But in contrast, in order for Israel to stop these drones and missiles, it needs to rely on interceptors that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and are not easily replaceable. And because of this, we're now seeing Iran being able to increasingly be successful in its strikes against Israel. But finally, the last thing I want to talk about is that we're, for the first time since the Iranian war begun, starting to see major protests against the war in Israel. Now, these protesters that are out there, they're not humanitarians. They're not protesting this war because they care about Iranians or Palestinians.
This is true. This is important.
What they are worried about only is about Israel itself. They are worried that Israel is not going to be successful in this conflict.
And not just that. What he doesn't mention here is that a lot of Israeli people, a lot of the religious Israelis that did not go to the IDF, there is a new conscription law that Netanyahu put out back in 2025 that said if you are an Israeli that you have to be willing to be drafted. You have to sign up to be drafted in the case of a war. Well, a lot of Zionists all over, and in America, in Brooklyn, there was just a protest last week or 2 weeks ago, and they were protesting the fact that they would have to actually fight in this war, their war. And then, of course, just yesterday we had the news from the IDF saying that, oh yeah, we're not going to support U.S. troops in a ground invasion of Iran. So it's like, this is your war, but we're not going to help support you, right? So this is kind of this is more of the gravity of the situation with the IDF and the Israeli people.
But the reason why the war matters for this sake is because it shows that Israel is a very divided society. A poll last year found that around 60% of Israelis believe that their country is on the brink of civil war. Right now, of course, most Israelis do support...
But don't forget that 80% of Israelis supported what happened in Gaza. That's a fact.
The war against Iran. But as that war continues, you're going to see that the existing divisions in the Israeli settler society are only going to become bigger and bigger. So for these three reasons, because the army doesn't have enough soldiers, there's not enough interceptors, and the society is becoming increasingly divided, Israel is starting to collapse. Thank you so much. Please leave a comment.
Yeah, it sure looks that way.
I really do enjoy it.
It sure looks that. It's back and forth, though. I mean, we're seeing big hits in Iran. Like, we're seeing massive hits in Iran where, you know, I think it was their desalination plants in Iran. That was the rumor that was struck last night. And then at the same time, Israel's taking major hits like pretty much nonstop. So we don't know what's real, and not a lot of info is coming out of Israel. So Alex Barnicoat does a good job of explaining this. I always cover a lot of his analysis. Follow him on X. He is great with the analysis. He's constantly putting out updates and following the war. So let's take a listen to what he had to say.
America is sending another aircraft carrier to Iran just days before we expect the US to launch a ground invasion into Iran. But what's embarrassing is that this aircraft carrier is actually coming to replace the other one, which caught on fire and injured hundreds of soldiers.
Yeah, that was the USS Gerald Ford.
Said, quote, the USS George W. Bush and its strike group are heading to the Middle East to join Operation Epic Fury. That's the operation against Iran. But something you need to know is that the aircraft carrier it's replacing is the USS Gerald R. Ford, which cost $13 billion, and it's the most expensive and advanced aircraft carrier that the US currently has.
I can't believe we sent that
I
out
have
there.
Inside information.
That was so dumb.
I can confirm to you that a massive fire started on that ship, which took 22 hours to fight and injured hundreds of sailors on board. The ship has since gone to Greece for repairs, and it's expected to take 2 years to repair, according to my information. And so the US has had to send a new aircraft carrier to Iran to replace it, so that one can defend Israel. And it's expected to arrive in the Mediterranean within 10 to 12 days. Officially, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the one that caught on fire, was also in the Mediterranean. But according to our information as well, we found out that it was in the northern Red Sea, still defending against Israel. And so it's likely that this new aircraft carrier that's replacing it will also go to the northern Red Sea as well, even though officially it will be off the coast of Israel in the eastern Mediterranean. You guys might have realized over the last few months that we're definitely getting a lot more inside information. We are, and that's because we're actually putting a lot more thought and effort into getting you guys the news. We're reaching out to a lot of people. We've got a lot of connections now all around the world, and so we're able to bring you information like this, like whereabouts of American aircraft carriers, what's happened on
Alex
them,
Barnicoat.
etc. To be fair, I think a lot of this information I can probably get in trouble for telling you, but because I'm not showing you classified documents and things, I think we'll be okay. Either way, I'm the only one that's going to tell you about this because I'm the only one that knows about it. So please consider supporting the channel because we're demonetized because of what I tell you. These videos don't make any money, and obviously they
This is so
cost money to
true.
make.
You got to support the content creators out there. You got to support the info.
Or just click the link that's on my profile, the donate link, and you can go there and give just £3 or $4. That money goes really far though, so go to that link. Thank you guys. It'll mean the world, and I'll be able to bring you news like this of new aircraft carriers being sent, etc.
Yeah, definitely go and support Alex Barnicoat's channel. He gives great analysis, great updates on the war and everything that's happening. Japanese, this is from Yudo, the account Yudo. Again, here's some more Japanese accounts on X. They've been trending on X. You got a lot of Japanese info. You got a lot of Japanese content creators. It's been interesting to say the least. Japanese authorities have received an official explanation regarding the world's first zero-knowledge privacy transaction, and other countries' governments have already conducted proof-of-concept experiments using XRP. That's really weird. That came from Japan. We intend to take some measures after closely observing how other countries introduce this technology. This will represent a major structural change. So apparently Japan is using XRP. Look at that. So this is another good analysis from Natasha Tarak. My favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran. So again, she really breaks down the other side of this analysis on Iran and why Trump is really doing what he's doing. I thought it was a decent analysis.
To be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran. But some stupid people in the US say, why are you doing
this? This is satire, obviously. Don't get all offended.
But they're stupid people. Those were President Trump's words to the Financial Times as the Pentagon prepares for weeks of potential ground operations in Iran. At the same time, US officials say Trump is considering a high-risk mission to extract 1,000 pounds of Iran's uranium, a complex operation that could put American troops inside Iran for days or longer. Now, Trump hasn't yet made firm decisions on this. The White House says it's to give him maximum optionality. Needless to say, this is not calming markets or helping with ceasefire talk efforts, and it's definitely not convincing Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Right. Trump has compared this plan to the US seizing oil assets in Venezuela earlier this year. But this would be very different. Here's why. This is not some quick in and out operation. Trump's plan involves seizing Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal, which sits right off its coastline and inside one of the most heavily defended areas in the world. Iran has spent years preparing for exactly this. The moment
Who else thinks there has to be something going on with this Karg Island idea? Because there has to be something deeper than just sending our troops out there. You send special forces and they occupy the island. Now we have Karg Island. Now we control the Persian Gulf, even though it's not even close to the Strait of Hormuz. There's got to be something else stirring up. There's something else. There has to be a deeper plan. That's what we're trying to find here. And if you're enjoying the info, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, of course.
U.S. troops go in. They're stepping inside what's been described as a layered kill zone. We're talking coastal missile systems, drones, naval mines, fast attack boats, all designed to overwhelm and trap invading forces. U.S. and Israeli airstrikes have been successful in taking out a lot of Iran's weapons stockpiles and defenses. But even if the U.S. takes Karg Island, holding it is a completely different story. Because now you've got American troops sitting in one fixed location within constant range of Iranian fire. There's another major challenge. Iran is fighting using a strategy called decentralized mosaic defense. That means even if its main military leadership is hit, units keep operating independently. So this doesn't just end. The battlefield would likely expand to even more attacks on Gulf energy infrastructure, disruptions to shipping, and proxy attacks across the region.
It's a war of attrition.
Would then mean a longer conflict, higher oil prices, and U.S. forces pulled deeper into the war. And that's really the question here. Is a limited operation even possible? Or does this inevitably become a much longer and deadlier war?
What do you guys think? Is she right? Is she wrong? Leave your thoughts. Honestly, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Another good analysis, he covers more financial analysis, but of course on this channel, we like to cover finance because that's like one of the most important things in life, right? Money's the fuel. So we cover anybody who talks about money and they have a pretty good take on it. So he covers the news pretty well, and let's listen to what he has to say.
Donald Trump just changed the whole trajectory of this entire Iran war. He told some insiders in the White House or whatever, and Wall Street Journal somehow found this information that he's ready to close this conflict with Iran, even if Strait of Hormuz is going to be closed. Which makes, if you think about it, makes no fucking objective sense, because if it is still closed, then oil is going to keep climbing, and if it's climbing, it's going to affect inflation, so many things globally. And it's going to affect the trade, it's going to affect economies, it's going to affect all of it.
Right.
But on the other hand, we know very much, because Trump probably made a huge mistake with all of this, because he knows he cannot put troops on the ground because they're going to be all annihilated, most likely in Iran, because of terrain and how strong the regime really is. So I think my entire mistake...
Yeah, Iran is like 10 times harder than Iraq. And think about how bad Iraq was for our troops, for our Marines, for our soldiers. It was horrible. It was a bloodbath. And, you know, we destroyed all these places in Iraq, and then they just rebuilt it up. And it was really quick. And so you think about how brutal Iraq was in Afghanistan. Well, this is going to be worse. And think about the fact that Afghanistan is also on the northern border of Iran. So now you're going to have a coalition of all these different fighters. Iraqis, you're going to have Iranians, you're going to have Afghanis. You might even have Kazakhstan. All these different countries may be getting involved in this war. That's what makes this so dangerous. And these other countries, many of them Shia, Sunni Muslims, right? And so with that being said, they have a real disdain towards Israel in particular, with, of course, getting America involved in this war, right?
Here was that I thought it's going to end much faster, just like it did the last time. They just bombed a few things and that's it. And it seems like this 50-year-old thing is about to really come to a fucking conclusion. And both Iran and the US, there's so much misinformation, and they're trying to scramble some fucking ideas, it seems, because for both US and Iran, it seems like the end of the road. And they're really boxed in, and any solution they go for is a bad solution. So I'll keep you guys posted. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, because this is turning into a fucking shit show at this point.
Yeah. So in my opinion, when I look at things, I think that this was, I really think it's obvious. This was the Israelis who got the United States, the United States involved in this entire Iran war, because this benefits Israel. This is part of the greater Israel project. This is 7 regime changes in 5 years, and Iran is the last nation that needs to have a regime change done to it. And so the Israelis over the next 6 months are going to be running these, they're going to have their Mossad agents in Iran, Tehran. They're going to be causing civil uproars. They're going to be causing all of these, they're going to be using their proxy groups, a lot like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, right, created by Israel. Of course, right? None of these places used to be violent Muslims, by the way. You know, a lot of these places, like Syria, there used to be a lot of Syrian Christians, but because of all of this war, the Israelis as well, this essentially crushed Christianity in the entire Middle East. So that's really what's happening. You can say Christianity is a bad thing, whatever your thoughts. The point is, according to a geopolitical stance here, all these other countries are going to be uniting with Iran at the end of the day, because what's happening with Israel is they're out of control. They're taking out any kind of land they can, and they're doing it by means that are against the Geneva Convention, total war crimes, right? They're launching white phosphorus bombs in the sky of Lebanon, basically sulfuric acid melting down to the bone. Imagine that falling down over your hometown right now. You couldn't go to work, you couldn't do anything, and imagine you're not allowed to work and you're like forced to beg for water and all that stuff. So this was another big story. Netanyahu is not found, or basically he is not in front of the podium. And as he walks out from the podium, his voice doesn't change in the microphone. And at the same time, I was also able to capture here that he had 4 fingers. And so a lot of people liked the comment that I left. And we'll go to that in a moment. We'll just go to it right now. So yeah, I had left a comment that only 4 fingers on the right hand. His voice also remains the same level despite walking away from the mic. Very interesting psyop at play. And so when you look at this, again, we're going to watch this video in just a moment so you guys know what I'm saying. But look at that. If you look at the picture, he only has 4 fingers, 4 digits on his right hand in this photo. Okay, and then there's another frame of it, and you see it again. And you really cannot see a pinky. I sure can't see one. It looks like a glitch, looks like bad AI editing. And that comes from somebody who builds AI. I know what they're using. They're using a mix of Midjourney. They're using Grok, Imagine. They're using Sora, Sora 2 specifically. I know exactly what they're using to create these videos. It's not that hard. And then they're using the voice dubbing through 11 Labs. And then they're syncing up that timing. And then there's a lot of other good. There's VO3 with Google that creates all of these AI videos, human looking. You can't tell the difference. Honestly, I see a lot of videos on X that to me look really fake. See, and then you had this person who commented, have you seen how stupid you've become? You can't count. It's like you always have people on X. You try to point out some truth, and you got people who are insane and they always want to leave the hate. This is why we love X, right? You leave any kind of insight at all, and then you got people who leave these kind of comments. It's like, listen, it's called analysis. We're trying to determine the truth. We're trying to find inconsistencies in the information. So this is the video that was released.
Transforming Israel into soup, and this is the guarantee for our future.
And if you can listen past the narrator here, you can tell how can you hear his voice right now? Okay, he's walked away from the mic. You can say he has a shirt mic, sure, but it's just something to think about.
We are
It
working
actually does look like he might have a shirt mic on there.
on transforming Israel into a super nation in the region and globally, and we were able to do so thanks to our soldiers and our captains and all those who fought and those who died, and of course thanks to your solidarity and your steadfastness.
So right at the beginning of this video is really where you see it.
For our future.
It's when his hands cross over.
Working on transforming Israel into
it's kind of hard to catch it. I'll try to catch it here.
Nation in the region and globally.
Try to find that exact moment. Where was it? Is it right here at the beginning? Can't remember where it was. Sorry, I'm just trying to find that exact point where he had like 4 fingers there, and it was really weird. Where is it? Now I'm on the spot. I'm trying to find that exact moment. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Can't find it at the moment. But you guys can watch it over again and find it yourself. It's somewhere in there. And you can see when he's walking back to the stage, basically, you can see those 4 fingers. So that's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. What do you guys think, honestly? I mean, am I crazy? Or is there some truth to that? Do you guys think Netanyahu is dead or alive? Honest to God, like what is the truth? If everybody's so certain that Netanyahu is alive, then go ahead and say it. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Prove that I'm not right. U.S. sends nuclear, and again, I don't think Netanyahu's dead. I actually think Netanyahu is alive, and I think he's probably faked his death like Hitler did Hitler faked his death. They said he killed himself, but, they found a female skull with a bullet in it. Wasn't his skull. And then they find out that, Hitler had fled to Argentina. And I think he wrote a book about it. So, again, U.S. sends nuclear. Yeah, we read that already. So, again, a lot of these stories are just pretty huge in the news today. Sorry, we lost our spot there when I was looking. Okay, so this is big. James O'Keefe was just served with a restraining order at his West Palm Beach OMG headquarters while live on air. James said this is evidence of constitutional crisis and that he's losing hope as criminals walk free while he is raided by cops for doing his job. So what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about James O'Keefe? Is he to be trusted or is he not to be trusted?
Served a domestic restraining order against a newsroom before. You ever serve a restraining order against a journalist?
I'm not sure.
So I feel bad for this cop. Again, just being a cop myself, I just know how this works. And he knows how it works too, James O'Keefe. He just understands that it's a compartmentalized system here. The United States government is a compartmentalized system where everybody has one job. And when you think about it, you look at a lawyer and an attorney, right? Well, technically, they don't have the right to go and be a police officer. They have a right to be an officer of the court, but not an officer of, officer of the law, but more of an officer of the court is what a lawyer calls himself. With a police officer, you have the right to hold a gun and to enforce the law, right? The executive order. But at the same time, you can't be you don't defend the law of the court, right? Like you do as a cop, but an attorney can't carry a gun, right? And a police officer can't represent somebody in a court is what I'm trying to say. So, everybody's got one special job in this entire thing called the criminal justice system. So that is why they build it this way. So you have cops who go and serve you, and that's just their job. We're just doing our job, but that's the whole problem, right? It's like, okay, well, what happens when that starts conflicting with, the rights of journalists and the freedom of speech, freedom of press and religion and all of these things?
Sir, I don't think you understand what you're involved in here.
I don't understand. I don't know what everybody does for a living. So I may have served somebody that's.
Well, we're a news organization. There's something called the First Amendment, and it prohibits people from serving restraining.
This poor cop.
Reporting what they say.
This dude's just trying to do his job, but at the end of the day, it's like James O'Keefe is right here.
Well, I look very much forward to speaking with that judge and talking to them.
And he handled this perfectly, I think. The cop did a good job. James O'Keefe did a good job. They both handled this professionally, just about as good as you could have.
Well, thank you for being here, and I will tell it to the courts. I know you're just doing your job, but I hope you watch the video of the man saying he wants to kill me. I know. One of the problems in this country.
Right, and the cop says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, because, you get basically the court just gives us law enforcement officers this. They give you the subpoena, and you are to deliver it to the person who is being served. That's it. You can put it on the door even, right? There's different ways that it can be done. And so essentially, that's kind of what's going on. And it's very sad to see it happen to journalists. Like, at the end of the day, everybody has the right to speak and to question the truth. So that way we can find the truth.
I'm just telling you my opinion. And we report people breaking the law. We report people doing illegal things, and they're never held accountable. I'm the one who's brought to court. I'm the one who's arrested. I'm the one who's...
So true, though.
And the American people are just...
There really is like no law and order anymore. There's no justice. And it seems like the only people who get in trouble are the journalists. Or not just journalists, though. Just anybody who trying to speak the truth. A lot of Christians are getting persecuted. Definitely, white people definitely have a lot of racism against them today. You see that overall. You see these things going on today, and it's the result of wokeism and liberalism and Marxism, communism. You could blame it all. And then some would even say, a Jewish oligarchy. And I think that's created a lot of what we see in this country. Altogether, there's a truth kind of with all of that. So it sucks because there's not much you can really do here. As the cop, he can't really do nothing. I mean, he really is just doing his job. And at the same time, and he's doing it within the scope of his rights. And then at the same time, James O'Keefe, he's just getting screwed. Nothing he can do. You have to show up to court with a subpoena. And he's getting served on a live stream. And he's just doing his job, questioning things. He's reporting on events that are happening in the world, and that is his job to analyze and to, again, do exactly what he does. To, he gets people on a hot mic and he gets them saying things that, make people extremely shocked that this is happening in our country, these things that you see. And that's why they went after James O'Keefe.
They're just upset. I know this has nothing to do with you. I know you can't say anything. I respect that. I'm just a little upset. I'm a little discouraged. I'm losing hope. And I'm the guy that can't lose hope because people look up to me. But I'm the one who keeps getting held accountable. You understand what I'm saying? Something has to change. Not for my sake, but for our children's sake. You know what I mean? And I know you're just doing your job, and I get it. I understand, but we're entering a constitutional crisis in the United States. And
100%. 100%.
Bringing me to court. And I gotta ask myself, why am I even doing this? Why should I continue? That's the question that I have to ask myself. If it's just going to bring me pain and punishment and abuse.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's too bad, too.
And I get there's nothing you can do.
This is the war. This is the information war.
But here we are. That's where we are in this country. Have you ever...
So I love James O'Keefe personally. A lot of people may not like James O'Keefe, but at the end of the day, this is the information war. This is really what's going on. This was just 6 hours ago. One more update from Alex Barnacote. Let's take a listen. This is big story.
Bombed a drinking water facility in Kuwait, and millions of people could die because of it. Kuwait said, quote, a service building at a water desalination plant was attacked, resulting in the death of an Indian worker and significant material damage to the building. But something you need to know is that Iran has actually blamed the attack on Israel, and they're saying it's a false flag attack to drag other countries into the war. And to be fair, this is one of the worst things that Iran could possibly do. And if they did start attacking water desalination plants, it would probably cause World War III, simply because millions of people could die. The official Iranian government said, quote, the brutal aggression by Israel, under the pretext of accusing Iran, is a sign of the vileness and depravity of the Zionist occupiers. Now, something you need to know is that over the last few weeks, Iran has actually threatened to attack the water desalination plants. That did not come on its own, though. That came in response to the US threatening something. Over a week ago now, the US gave Iran just 48 hours to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or else the US will bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran, instead of listening and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, said, bring the attack, because in response, we will attack water desalination plants. Like I've said, that is one of the worst things that could happen. So the US came out and delayed the deadline. The US gave Iran an extra 3 days to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, because they just didn't want Iran to attack the water desalination plants. Still, Iran didn't do that, and so the US has now given them until the 6th of April, an extra 10 days. And so there is the threat that Iran will bomb a water desalination plant. But as I said, one in Kuwait just got bombed. What's weird is that Iran said they would only do that if the US bombed their nuclear plants, which they haven't yet. And so we don't know why Iran would actually do this, and now it makes a little bit more sense that they've blamed it on Israel. Over the last 4 weeks of war, there's been many occasions like this, where attacks have happened that don't really make sense, that are far too big for Iran to just do recklessly. And Iran, as we kind of expected they would, each time came out and blamed the attack on Israel as a false flag. And it seems the same thing might have happened here. A water desalination plant in Kuwait was just being bombed. It doesn't make sense for Iran to do it at the moment. They're playing their cards too early. But it makes sense when you think that Iran has blamed it on Israel to drag Kuwait into the war. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm not telling you what I think's happened. I'm telling you
so that's pretty huge. That's definitely big news. Sorry, we lost our screen there for a moment. Again, if you're tuning in, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. This was pretty cool. I thought this was very interesting. The official preview with my next guest. So this is the Sean Ryan show. I like his show. I think it's a great show. I recommend most people watch it. But this is an interesting insight on the Shroud of Christ.
I used to be the biggest skeptic of the Shroud. So I went from skeptic to believing in it based on the science.
It's pretty cool.
It turns out, when you look at it, the Shroud of Turin is scientific proof of the physical, bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I believe that based on the evidence and the 102 academic disciplines that have studied over 600,000 research hours in it. I believe that because I'm not irrational.
Yeah.
Welcome to a session that is not quite your normal Davos session. Because I've been coming to Davos many years, the agenda's usually been dominated by money, power, and fame.
Typically.
And today, we're going to talk about God.
I found out you spoke at Davos at the World Economic Forum.
Right. You did a really great show recently with The Exorcist, and he mentioned the Antichrist quite a bit. And my wife let me know at Davos I was giving the gospel to all the people that are going to work with the Antichrist someday.
Pretty much.
And he said, I want you to bring the gospel and the evidence and the receipts for the resurrection to Davos.
And then he'll bring it to Twitter, and Twitter will just crush him. Because Twitter's just awful. So they're always gonna, that's
These
where you'll get the real
ideals
haters.
that built Western civilization come from one event horizon, the physical, bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Who else is excited for Mel Gibson's sequel of The Passion, The Resurrection? I think it's going to be good.
That message rehumanized humanity. Ideas of loving your enemies, forgiving debts, that didn't come from Marxism. That didn't come from socialism. Of course, they're all looking at me like this. In Davos, I said that the
It's totally
event
true.
horizon is the resurrection of Christ. One thing I love about your program and love about you in particular is you're addicted to truth, and you're willing to share the truth no matter the cost. Here we are on Easter for an Easter broadcast. This is the conversation, and it flips around because, again, it's written on both sides, the recto and the verso. Can I read it to you in Greek?
Yes.
This is the conversation Jesus is having with Pontius Pilate. And do you remember he asked Jesus, what is truth? And Jesus responds right here, ek tes aletheus. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice.
Pretty cool. Pretty good ad. Pretty good ad.
Did not see Jesus physically alive after he was dead. They had all given up hope. We were eyewitnesses of these things so that you can have a certainty to your faith. That's what the kind of faith we're called to, certainty based on eyewitness testimony and evidence. So let's not think that faith is like something we drum up or we vibe or I just need more faith, man. No, faith is knowledge. The more you know about God, the more you know about the facts that we're discussing for the resurrection, your faith will naturally become stronger.
I think wisdom itself leads to that for sure. The shroud.
Jesus
of
is
Christ.
first flogged. He's beaten. Well, I have the flagrum here, I'll show you, 700 times. Then they put the crown of thorns on his head. Pontius Pilate stands up next to Jesus. Remember, his wife warned him in a dream, have nothing to do with this man. And yet Pilate says, ecce homo, in Latin, behold the man. And the crowd, full of Jews, began to yell, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. They want him dead.
Jeremiah Johnston. Should be a good episode. I want to watch it. Breaking, this is Beirut. Israel is dropping bombs on residential neighborhoods in Lebanon's capital, wiping out civilian apartment buildings. This is terrorism. Yeah, it is. It's war. Somebody starts it, right? Somebody's going to start the war every time. And this just so happens to be Israel. One more time. That's crazy. Wow. Again, this was we already covered that. That was from Donald Trump on the entire exit of Iran within the next 2 weeks. I think we're going to see that happen. And tribalism and politics. I thought that was kind of dumb, but I do think that the post was pretty good. Thomas Massey says there are only about 30 good Republicans in the House, and the rest are evil or just NPCs.
Okay. There might sound like a black pill, but it's actually a red pill. There are 30 members of Congress. I would count myself among them, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace. Those are my partners in the crime of uncovering the pedophiles. Okay, there are about 30 folks like that. Okay, 30 good people out of a Republican conference in the House that has 220. They wake up every day and they want to do the right thing, even if it would cost them their election. Even if it would
That's scary. He says only around 30 people are to be trusted, like good people.
Cost them money, if it would cost them votes. Then there's 30 bad folks. I mean, Congress, these are the ones that do the insider trading. These are the ones who are going to die in office. They'll be in a nursing home, not even voting, and their constituents won't even know it because they just get reelected. And they are evil, okay? They are the worst. They will do the wrong thing, even if the right thing would get them more votes and a better chance at reelection.
Again, that is a sitting congressman talking like that about his own people. That tells you a lot about what you need to be paying attention to.
They're just programmed to do the wrong thing. Okay, 220 minus
and again, not every Thomas Massie, he might not be perfect. He might have some liberal views here and there. But what I do like is that he stands for the truth, and he has voted about 98% Republican. So he's been pretty loyal to the Republican Party, and it's not about Republicans or Democrats. It's about the truth and doing what's right. It's about standing up for your country and putting America first, not Israel first. That's kind of what everybody's looking for. We're looking for some kind of leader who's willing to actually fight for those ideas. Not just a CIA install who ends up saying all these things like a J.D. Vance type and, pushed up by Silicon Valley, but then they end up ripping everything, kind of like Trump did. Trump duped everybody, but everybody ended up just going along with it. And look at what happened. Got in a war with Iran. And then now we have everybody supporting that in D.C. So, and I wouldn't say everybody because you have the people like Massie, but it's not good. And if he's talking this way about the rest of the Congress, what does that tell you?
Minus 30. That leaves 160 members of Congress who are all running the same program. They're like NPCs. They will follow whichever set of leadership prevails. And by the way, right now it's the bad set that prevail. Okay, it's and the bad set are driven by the lobbyists.
Right.
What's interesting is Mike Johnson went from he was among the 160. He was never among the 30 good guys. He was among the 160, and he became one of the 30 who do the wrong thing every day. But if our good 30, well, first of all, if I win this re-election, you get 29 more Thomas Massies. Because there are 29 waiting to see, of the 30 good ones, waiting to see if I can win.
What do you guys think of Thomas Massie?
On the floor and tell me, this is the right vote. I just don't think I can take this vote and get reelected. Okay, we can give them an existence proof that you can get reelected. And by the way, if there were 30 of us who were getting in trouble for doing the right thing, then that money, the Israeli lobby would have to spread their money out. I actually like that Lindsey Graham's race is closed.
I like what Warren Buffett also said. Warren Buffett said that if you wanted to handle the national debt crisis and if you wanted to handle that problem in Congress, you just have to make a rule that no sitting congressman would be eligible for re-election if they overspend, period. And that was his solution. And think about it. If no congressman was allowed to overspend, right? Like if you overspent as a congressman beyond the thresholds, then basically you wouldn't be allowed to sit for office anymore. Period. That's it. Plain and simple. And we don't have that. Why is that? Why was Warren Buffett so brilliant in his wisdom? Why can't we have that? Where, maybe a foreign lobby can't just give $250 million to a presidential candidate. There just needs to be simply laws against that. And there needs to be laws against overspending. There needs to be laws against, not against lobbyism, but to, more fairly and proportionally balance that out. So we're not having foreign influence coming into our country, giving $250 million to a candidate. And then next thing you know, that candidate wins and they're doing everything for that same donor. And I'm talking about Maria Adelson, who gave Donald Trump $250 million. And now she wants to give him another $250 million. So that's scary stuff.
And the APAC are now rushing down to South Carolina to do triage on their robot. But So here's the good news. It sounds like a black pill that there's 160 NPCs. I like that. I don't want those to be 160 Thomas Masseys. I just want the 30 good guys to feel like they can do the right thing and still win their reelection. And maybe we get 15 more of those 30. Maybe we get some more Marjorie Taylor Greens and Lauren Boeberts and those kind of people elected. And our group becomes 45 who can't be moved. And then we could control the agenda on any given day, like I did on the Epstein files, but with unambiguously conservative things like cutting money. I can't do an Epstein file type discharge petition on cutting funding because there just aren't 218 signatures to cut funding in DC. But if 30 of us become 45 and we lock arms, we get 160 that will come along. These folks put on a red shirt and salute the leadership, and they will do whatever they got to do for the party. And that, again, is what my opponent is promising to be. He's promising to be one of the 160 NPCs who just goes along to get along. I said earlier in this program, I said the problem with Congress is you have men and women who campaign on promises, and then they get to Washington, D.C. and go along to get along. This is the first time I've had to run against somebody who promises to go along to get along. Like, that's his campaign message.
That reminds me of Marco Rubio. I think Marco Rubio is a go along to get along kind of guy.
He won't debate me. I've said I'll take any forum. I'm kind of like you, Dave. I'll debate this guy anywhere. I'll even let Donald Trump moderate the debate. I'll let his campaign manager moderate the debate. Just let me have an open microphone for a little bit, and then let him say what he actually believes. He's not going to be able to articulate a platform because an NPC cannot do that. They cannot articulate what they're for because they're promising to be for whatever the president wants. And the problem is what the president wants has changed over time, and what I've promised the people has never changed. And by the way,
what he said there was important, that what the president wants has changed from what he used to want, right? Trump ran in 2016 on closed borders. He ran on mass deportations. He ran on no more wars. He ran on, strong military, bringing jobs back to the United States, America first, no more of the globalism. But he became the greatest globalist, and somehow, some way, did a 180-degree direction. And now, we are in this quagmire with Iran. So it's quite interesting to look at all of that and how this is working. So this was kind of interesting. This is Julianne Dory. Trump told Israel no to an assassination plan, but it happened anyways, essentially.
People figured out who the negotiators
were. We won't watch
were.
the whole thing, but this is crazy.
I get really upset about that because, by the way, there was another, I forgot about this. Trump was talking about not having the negotiators killed, so he didn't want to say their name. And then people figured out who the negotiators were. So the Pakistani intelligence service, which is interesting because we've certainly not always seen eye to eye with the Pakistanis. Been plenty of issues there. The Pakistani intelligence services reportedly got information that the two negotiators from the IRGC that the United States was negotiating with this week were about to be assassinated by Israel. And the Pakistanis took that information to Trump, and Trump went to Israel and said, don't fucking do that. The Israelis were going to do that. Now, there was another report that is not, this one was less sourced and all that, but apparently there were bombs that dropped in Iran in buildings very close to where the Pakistani ambassadors are.
Oh my God. That's insane.
After that report. Now, maybe that's an accident. Maybe it's a coincidence because they did miss. As far at the time of this recording, those people are alive.
You don't want to drag them into this, bro.
It's like on the one hand, Trump, don't kill.
Yeah, because Israel is absolutely trying to sabotage the entire peace deal, the Trump peace deal. And that they want to make a punchline out of it, a joke out of it. But, Trump, he has nobody to blame but himself. When he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal back in, 2017, that was when that started everything. That started the entire war. That triggered the hot war. And that's where we're at today. Now we have this situation where we can't get out. We're stuck there, or we have to strategically withdraw, which is a good thing because Trump is talking about doing that now. So we can only hope that he stays true to that. And then, of course, beyond all things, that Israel stays true to that, which I doubt they will because of these kind of stories.
The negotiators, Israel, we're going to kill the negotiators. Pakistan, hey, Israel's going to kill the negotiators. Trump to Israel, don't kill my negotiators. Israel, let's kill the Pakistanis. Like, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? Why is this happening?
Well, so I think it's happening because of the Epstein files, right? It's happening because of the Epstein files. And what is in those Epstein files? Trump has been compromised, I believe. That's my theory. That's my belief. And that's just, it's not a theory. I mean, I've read the Epstein files. Most people have not even read them. There's still there's 10,000 Epstein files completely missing that you'll never see because allegedly they have Israel's name written all over it. And that comes from that CIA guy. I can't remember his name. John, last name starts with a G. I got to figure this guy's name out. But that's been going viral on X. This is the Italian Maloney. I accuse Israel of crossing the red line. I condemn the massacre of Palestinian civilians. And I announce that Italy will support European sanction against Israel. So talk about a real woman. They look like this. Women take notes, you know. If only Trump had the courage that she did. Seriously. Like, just say what's right. Do what's right, man. Defy Israel. Period. Defy them. Go against them. They're not our greatest ally. That's plain as day to see for anybody. And that's simply what Trump needs to do.
Might have negotiated, but the
U.S.
Israelis
Senator Chris Coons confirms Israel intentionally assassinated the exact Iranian leader the Trump administration was trying to negotiate with.
Great question to which there isn't a great answer. President Trump, several days into the war, made it clear that he had thought that Larijani, one of the senior elected leaders of the Iranian government, was someone with whom he or his administration might have negotiated, but the Israelis assassinated him. The Israelis have attacked over and over the senior leadership of the intelligence
this is what we're dealing
of the
with.
IRGC, of the Ayatollah and his close advisors, and that
the greatest threat to the United States is Israel. It is Israel. If you care about national security and if you care about counterterrorism and if you love America, then you must understand what is happening. The United States is being controlled by the state of Israel right now via politics, finance, and really the people surrounding Trump ultimately. And they're calling the shots. And these groups are going hard on the Greater Israel Project. So they're luring and deterring Trump into this direction at all times. And every decision is coming back to this Greater Israel Pax Judaic Project. And that is to acquire not just Gaza and Israel for the Israeli state, but to turn Israel into modern-day Lebanon, into Egypt, and they want the Nile. They want all of it. They want Syria. They want Iran. They want Iraq. They want Turkey. And then they also want Ukraine. And it started off, this entire Greater Israel Project, it started off with 7 regime changes in 5 years. And here we are today. So let's take a look at this video.
has made it difficult for us to assess exactly who's in charge. But we do know this. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, has a pretty firm grip on the country and has been trained in how to continue aggressive operations even when there isn't a clear central...
If we send our troops into Iran, it is going to be another Vietnam, is what I see that being like. It's going to be a hybrid of Iraq and Afghanistan and then mix it with Vietnam because they basically have an underground city in Iran. Their entire military is underground. And if you've been watching the videos, you've been seeing all of the different, all the different missiles that have been striking out of the ground, directly of the ground in these little tiny holes that just pop up from the desert sand in the middle of nowhere. How are we going to find that? Okay, well, some bunker busters. Okay, yeah, so you can use some topographic sonar, and you could find any kind of facilities underneath the ground. Okay, that's wonderful. That's great. At the same time, it's like, how are you going to get in? How are you going to get the access? How are you going to get the logistics to get the drones and the missiles in there? How are we going to get our ships parked in a place where we can actually launch those off without detection? How are we going to beat anti-missile systems that they do have? How are we going to politically play that? There's just really no outcome where this actually made sense in a military sense or in a political sense, really. The only way that this made sense is if we actually do a strategic withdrawal, a strategic retreat, in order to, again, hold American power over this entire situation, American dominance over the situation, then at the same time, make sure that the entire global economy doesn't completely become destroyed. Okay, the issue is here, not Iran. The issue here is Israel and whether or not they're going to just go ham. And they're going to go ham on everybody. Are they going to go ham on Lebanon and take Lebanon the same way that they did Gaza? And then after Lebanon, what's next after that? Well, it's going to be Turkey. Turkey will be next after Lebanon. And after Turkey, then it'll be Ukraine, which is what's being done now simultaneously. This is a simultaneous multi-domain war. And so if you do not understand this, then you need to study counterterrorism and national security, because this is our biggest problem in America right now is the Israeli state. This is our number one greatest national security threat is the Israeli state.
So I don't, in the near term, see an easy path towards there being a real change in the government or the regime in Iran.
Yeah, so no, I don't. And they're going to try, though. Mossad is going to try. They're going to do whatever they're going to do whatever it takes to ensure that there is some kind of regime change. So you are going to see false flag events. You're going to see Mossad events. You're going to see, political uprisings, and you're going to see, coup d'etats and all these things happen. Violent revolutions. You're going to see Muslims taking out Christian villages, creating this narrative. So this is the real psyop, is how you perceive the stories you see on social media, how you perceive the truth. And that's what this is all going to be about, whether or not you can understand the fifth dimensional chess being played. American base in Kuwait is destroyed. Trump's willing to escalate the war in order to gain a propaganda victory. Sorry, that's super loud. So again, these are U.S. military bases. American base in Kuwait. Not good, right? What do you guys think about that? Couldn't tell you where things are going. I couldn't tell you. This guy's been going viral. Speaking as a private citizen and voter, this is not normal behavior. It must be stopped. Judge Milleron uses the authority of the bench to threaten people with jail or merely doing his job or doing their jobs.
County jury.
I've been laughing at this guy a little bit. This guy just has no patience, and I'm a guy who has pretty little patience, but whoa.
I can't read that.
Okay. Those are the overlapping stores between the stores outlined.
You're wasting my time this morning.
Imagine if you had to work with somebody like this.
We have an overlapping issue in these two cases.
They don't seem to be that overlapping to me.
Well, we have the same parties.
You want to go to Jefferson County because you want Jefferson County jury.
Oh, Judge, we're the defendants in the case.
No.
They're the plaintiffs. We haven't filed either one of these cases. They filed this case
Lien
first.
abatement is denied.
Thank you, Your Honor. We filed a proposed order, but I have one here if you want to
take it.
Jeff, you want to briefly respond
You
about...
may not.
Well,
this hearing is done.
She's asking for a sanction.
Deputy, remove her from my bench now.
What the hell?
No, you may not. This hearing is over. Jesus Christ, these people today.
That's an actual
Step
judge.
away. You're about to be cuffed.
You're about to be cuffed. That's insane. Imagine this. So you wonder why America is the way it is. You wonder why you can't get a fair shake in a trial. You wonder why you can't get a situation where maybe criminals aren't being let out on the streets. Maybe it's because your judges might have a little bit of that criminal psychography.
Can't read that.
Okay.
Come on.
Those are the overlapping stores between the stores.
But yeah, there's a ton of other videos of that guy, and he's been getting a ton of complaints. Terrible judge. Honestly, just no decorum. Yeah, there was a bit of debates on that. There's so many crazy stories. This was crazy. Naked guns and Jesus Christ covered in blood, committing sexual acts and depravity. That's what Sancta, the new opera launched by Opera Antwerp, shows. The demonic anti-Christian filth is subsidized and approved by our anti-Christian government. So, I mean, yeah, I'm playing this because it's like, talk about an example of, I'm not going to play the music just because I don't want to get copyright, but take a look at this video and tell me what you see. You know, what does it make you feel like? What the hell? You know, like this is what they're, you know, this is the way they subvert Christianity and religions. They turn it into this strange weirdness and this thing that becomes unattractive and ugly. They make everything that is beautiful ugly. And so that is the agenda of the elites, is to turn people away from God and Christianity by putting this kind of image on top of it. And so that way, when people say, oh, you're a Christian, I've seen videos like this before, and see how it works? This is propaganda. This is the psyop. This is the whole agenda. They're trying to turn people away from the Christian religion because, well, they want this to be a godless nation where you are in the world of the strange and nothing makes sense, which would be the land of Satan, right? Utah County Sheriff who brought in Tyler Robinson abruptly resigns. Washington County Sheriff who facilitated Tyler Robinson turning himself in quit out of nowhere today, same day that it was revealed that a bullet is not a match for the gun, that the bullet is not a match for the gun. What? So Tyler Robinson might not be the shooter of Charlie Kirk. After all of the evidence, we always knew, or at least we didn't always, not everybody knew, but a lot of people had a feeling that there was much, much, much more going on behind this. So let's listen to what this sheriff has to say.
On the 11th, I received a call from a friend of mine who happens to be a retired detective that worked for me for many years. I didn't put that out there initially. I wanted to protect that individual as much as possible. Unfortunately, in the court documents, which is standard, he was referenced as a retired Washington County deputy. So I didn't put that out there. It was in the court docs. I was trying to protect even that information and just saying retired law enforcement in general.
Huh.
So I get a call from my friend, and his said, "Hey, how you doing?" Good. And it's not, you know, he's been retired a few years. We'll call each other. It's not unusual for me to get a call from him or vice versa. And at 8:02 p.m., he calls me. Hey, I can tell his voice is kind of shaky. So my first thought is, who died? Like who's he going to tell me that died? And then I couldn't fathom what actually came out of his mouth. So he said, "Hey, I know who Charlie Kirk shooter is. I know the family through religious association, and he's in Washington County now, and we're working on trying to get him to come in voluntarily."
Huh. Interesting. So Tyler Robinson may not be the real shooter? Is there something more? Was there a different way of which Charlie was killed? Are we being hidden from the truth? Another humiliating image of the Lebanese army leaving a town in the south of the country to make way for Israeli military entry into occupation. For the 1000th time, why exactly does Lebanon have an army? Yeah, so that's not good. So at the same time, Israelis taking hits, they are moving into Lebanon. So Israel's taking hits from Iran right now and Hezbollah, but at the same time, in Lebanon, Lebanon's being conquered and taken by the Israelis. And then also, don't forget about Argentina, which we have all the forest fires that have been going off, and the Israelis who have been arrested again and again, multiple times now, for attempting to light these forest fires because they want to buy up the land. And there's a new law that if basically in Argentina you can be from a different country and buy that land if there's some kind of damage or forest fire to it. So that's pretty insane to think about that. And so it tells you a lot about why they're doing what they're doing in Lebanon, the Israelis. So yeah, everything that you saw in Gaza, they're going to try to do it right here in Lebanon. Everything that you saw, same thing. That's what's being done. They're going to just be more cunning about it this time. And they also just made a law that it is now legal, according to the Knesset in Israel, to murder and kill Palestinian people if they are shown to be terrorists. So what does that mean? What is a terrorist? Well, it could be anything. It's a pretty vague definition. They didn't quite explain what their definition of terrorism was, but the universal definition for terrorism is, political, financial, ideological, or religious purposes or motivations for wealth and power, all of these things. These are the typical motivations that lead to terrorists, domestic terrorism or international terrorism, all these things. That's how it's happening. That's what's being done. Okay, so this is the entire psyop that's happening on the American public. Okay, NATO about to start war with Iran. So let's see, this is more about NATO and what's happening with NATO.
Something that nobody expected, and it's such a big deal. NATO might be joining the war with Iran, and a country in NATO just made a huge mistake. Well, a few moments ago, Estonia just came out and said something that nobody expected, and it's such a big deal, it could drag them into the war with Iran. Well, we just found out that when the war started 4 weeks ago, the Estonian foreign minister did something very different to the rest of Europe. The rest of Europe, as I'm sure you know, pretty much distanced themselves from the war. They made it clear that they don't want to get involved in another Middle East conflict. But Estonia was the only country that did something different. The foreign minister actually flew directly to Israel and met with the Israeli president. He met with the Israeli president straight away and, quote, delivered what almost no one else in Europe had the spine to offer: Estonia's full, unequivocal support for Israel. And it doesn't stop there. He actually, quote, locked in new contracts for Israeli air defense systems and heavy military equipment. And he also, acting on behalf of Estonia, quote, labeled Iran as a direct threat to Estonia and the rest of Europe.
So Estonia was becoming involved in the war.
I'm going to simplify it for you. It makes Estonia a direct party in the war, and it makes them complicit in the war. By providing weapons to Israel and guaranteeing full solidarity and support to Israel, it makes Estonia a party in the war, meaning they're liable to actually be attacked by Iran. And Estonia is a full NATO member. And of course, NATO has their own Article 5. And that means that if one NATO member is attacked, then all of NATO is attacked. And as I've just told you, Estonia has now put themselves into a position where they are vulnerable to be attacked legally. And so maybe I'm reaching here, but Estonia has done something, in their words, that nobody else in Europe had the, quote, spine to do. But the problem is that if Estonia is dragged into this war because of these actions, then NATO will be too. Turkey has already been attacked, and Turkey's a NATO member too.
Yes.
Greece has been too in Cyprus. And so it's not a crazy statement to say that if enough NATO countries are attacked by Iran or not, then NATO will join the war in support of Israel. And that will be, and I think genuinely we're getting close to it anyway, that'll be World War III. NATO versus Iran,
100%.
Russia and China supporting Iran. And so Estonia here might have just played the cards which could drag NATO into World War III. I wonder what NATO and the rest of Europe is going to think about this, because if they don't come out and condemn Estonia for doing this and acting on behalf of NATO when they don't represent NATO, I don't know what's going to happen. And so maybe they will do that. But you can leave me a follow, because this is big news.
And that was Alex Barnicoat again. A lot more updates from him, but we've watched like 4 of his videos. Charlie Kirk assassination case just exploded. Again, look at this. Look at this.
Those bullet
what is
casings,
going on?
I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I'll share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulges, capital OWO, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read,
That's weird.
"Oh, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO."
Okay. So that was the update from the Tyler Robinson.
I know there's been
whether or not Tyler Robinson is the shooter, and allegedly writing that was on the cases, the bullet casings. This is Isfahan, Iran. This was just last night. Trump and Israel are massively bombing a city older than most of the modern world. Over 2,500 years of history, nearly 2 million civilians, and they call it liberation. So again, this was The bomb that was dropped on Isfahan, Iran. Look at that. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. The mushroom clouds are growing. More of them are coming. Breaking massive destruction in Tel Aviv with buildings leveled. Reports indicate Iran was hunting an Israeli official in that sector. So both sides are taking hits. Israel's taking hits. Iran's taking hits. The question is, when are we, the United States, going to get out of there before we start taking hits? We've already taken hits. We've already lost something around 13 troops. I think that's actually been a lot more, but we're going off of the confirmed numbers. I thought this was good. This is Nayib Bukele. He is the El Salvadorian president, and man, this guy's awesome. I think he's a testament to true leadership. This is what he did to El Salvador, what it looked like before and what it looks like now. This is what happens when you have a good government, when you have a government that actually cares. I don't want to get copyright, so I'm not going to play that music. But look at the difference. Look at what it used to be and then what it is now. This is all it takes is one leader who is good, who has the vision of the future for his people. You know, look at this difference. Absolutely insane. I've never seen a transformation like this. Also important to note that El Salvador is pro-Bitcoin. Whatever that means, say what you will, but quite the difference. What a revolution for El Salvador. You know, we could have this too. America could be great again. If El Salvador can be great again, I don't see why America can't be great again. So I think it should be the mission of the future. Otherwise, we're just going to keep seeing this picture where we have U.S. troops who, quite literally, none of them want to fight in this Iran war. None of them. Have you seen anything like this? I've never seen U.S. troops who didn't want to fight for their own country. And why? Because it's not our war. And even worse than Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan, this is just certain death. There really is absolutely no benefit to this war. And so that is where things get striking. Marco Rubio, imagine if instead of spending billions of dollars supporting terrorists or weapons, Iran had spent that money helping the people of Iran. And again, I think a lot of that's propaganda from Rubio. So, and this was everything I covered. We're starting to get into the videos I started covering yesterday. So go to yesterday's episode. You'll be able to watch my coverage of all of these videos here that I'm scrolling through. I covered all of these on yesterday's episode last night. But that's today's news. So be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you tuned in today. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of this. What do you guys think is going to happen with the Iran war? What do you guys think is going to happen with Netanyahu? What do you guys think is going to happen with all of the allying nations? Are they going to join Israel? Are they going to, like Estonia, right? Alex Barnicoat, he was just stating that NATO is now going to become involved in the war and fight on Israel's side and the United States' side, and to basically to go after Iran. And what do you guys think? Ultimately, I think this is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be another Vietnam, another World War II, and it's dangerous for our troops. Doesn't make much sense. There's really no military or tactical advantage here. Really no economic advantage. If we can keep the straight, that's great. But it looks like we're going to be walking away with less than what we already had, according to what we're seeing now. And with Trump saying we're going to leave the Strait of Hormuz in 2 weeks, basically, I think his Truth Social post, that's what it was saying. That entire Truth Social post was calling on the allies to back the United States in taking the Strait of Hormuz and securing that, along with changing Iran's regime, or otherwise, then we're just going to leave. And I think that's what's going to happen ultimately, because we really can't stay. Nobody's backing us. We don't have the military capabilities, the logistics. If anything, the only thing we would be able to do is drop some kind of tactical nuclear missile on top of Iran or something. And guess what? That's not going to fare too well, obviously. Look at what happened with Hiroshima. Look at what happened with Nagasaki. By the way, fun fact, very Christian cities, ironically. You could look that up, whatever you think about Christianity. Just interesting fact. But that's what's happening. And this is the war. What else did we miss today, right? We have the Clarity Act and crypto. I think that's going to be coming. You're going to see some big news happening with crypto, probably May or April, possibly May or April. And we'll see. We'll see. Ultimately, I hope we get out of the war with Iran. Hopefully, those troops don't actually end up getting sent there. Hopefully, this is all a psyop, but I don't see it that way. I think we're going to be in Iran for a very long time. and I don't see us really being in a situation where we're going to be out of it. So be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and that is all we have for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, and I'll see you next time. Stay prudent.